All right, good to see everybody. Thank you for coming on, be with us here this morning. Um, it's almost a year to the day that I was announced the head football coach at Duke, and I think somewhere on that day I would have mentioned something about alignment winning, and today is a great example of that. I wouldn't be sitting here before you, praising the highest rated recruiting class in program history without immense alignment that I'm just so grateful for, starting with our coaching staff, our on the field coaches, analysts, GAs, did a phenomenal job all year. The depth of this class um, at every position is extraordinary. Our recruiting staff, headed up by John Garrett, our general manager, they were just terrific. Whether it was unofficial visits, but we were just piecing together when we first got here in January, all the way to our official visits. Our administration, Nina King, Art Chase, our athletic department, our support from Iron Dukes and everyone involved in Iron Dukes to help this class come together. You can't do it without them these days. And and one sort of unsung hero to the story is actually the city of Durham. And in our official visits this summer, we talk about the connection with the Bull City, but what it was like taking our recruits and our parents to multiple venues downtown, um, restaurants, entertainment areas. It blew people away, and it's just another example of, as this program rises, as Durham continues to grow and expand and improve. A rising tide floats all boats, and just a further encouragement to all of our people that when they're in town for games, whatever, to take care of our local restaurants, because it really transformed our visit, and the parents were just stunned at what a great community that we have around Duke University. So, like I said, from our university administration all the way down to our recruiting interns, everyone's got a hand in this class, and I just feel very fortunate as the head football coach that I get a chance to coach these guys. I do believe the class is a statement of intent, not just in terms of the quality that I just mentioned, but the quantity. I think just the sheer number, having 27 guys when we're going into an era with 105 roster limit, that means a quarter of our football team next year is going to be um, in high school as we speak right now. That shows that we want to be a developmental program. It shows that we are full believers in the Church of David Feely to develop these guys and turn them into the type of players who ultimately were the core of our football team this year, and the reason why we had such success on the football field this year. To be able to sign seven offensive linemen, I think five defensive linemen, again, shows that we want to, in a line of scrimmage league, that we're going to be devoted to getting those guys right and building those guys from the inside out. And then we're very, again, pleased with the skill people we added, and we thought we added a big time quarterback. And I think one of the coolest stats of this class is that nine of them are still practicing, which means a third of the class has a chance to win a state championship coming up, and we had a few of them that just were eliminated this past weekend. So we're recruiting captains, we're recruiting winners, and those are the exact type people that we want to build our program with. So with that, I will open it up for questions.
Yeah, Manny, I know when you take the job and you lay out, this is our recruiting plan, you hope it'll turn out this way. At what point during this process did you see this is going to work? We're going to have like the best class in program history.
Yeah, it's a great question, Steve. I think we were a little taken aback as a new staff. Um, Maybe in the springtime when we would start to whisper each other, wow, like we're really attracting extraordinary people and extraordinary players. You just don't know. And I have to also say that, again, credit goes to the 2 years previous. I mean, I've mentioned in this forum many times how 16, 17, 18-year-olds have very short histories. And so, um, when they're watching, the students storm the field against Clemson, or when they're watching the 9-win season of 3 years ago, this group was just in ninth grade. And that's really their recent history in football is about what they remember. And so to be able to equate Duke with winning, everyone know you're getting the elite academic experience. Um, so I think the fact that those two things go hand in hand, we kind of felt that momentum in the spring, and then when we had the official visits in the summer, and as I mentioned, this place just sparkles in June. And taking, like I said, taking the kids around town, taking the families around town, and seeing. I think one of the neat things is seeing how the parents of the recruits interact with each other. Um, there's just you start to see there's a rhyme, to the type of family that raises a young man who has a chance to come to Duke. And you see a commonality in the parents. I mean, there's not just 27 young men who officially became Duke Blue Devils today. There's 27 sets of parents who officially became, Blue Devil parents. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, that's a great thing to happen. And it shows a lot of times some of those good cop, bad cop decisions that you have to make as a parent, they pay off at the end, because when you see your son sign today at Duke, it lets you know that it was worth it when you made him go back and do something that maybe they didn't want to do at the time.
Connor, we'll go to you and then Jim.
Yeah, Manny, you mentioned last week that it would be one of, if not the biggest early enroll class. I'm wondering if you could give us a exact number if you have that at this point, or just a ballpark, and some guys that you know for sure will be in that group.
Oh, it'll be around 13, and I don't want to get into who will or won't, because I don't want to misspeak on that, and it's not worth getting it wrong. But yeah, I think 13 is right around where it's going to be at, so almost half.
And to follow up, just kind of basically, how important is it going to be to get those guys there in the spring? And what are you looking forward to, without giving the specifics on who's coming in?
Well, the same thing with the group that came in early last year, right? You want guys who um, learn our way of doing things. We always make the mid-year choice a very it's we never push for it. It's their personal decision if they want to. Some schools don't let you do it. But some young men, if they want to be a part of the race semester and take in their spring senior year, there's a lot to that. But if they do take the time and have the ability to come here early, it gets them 4 months in our off-season program, so they understand. Like I said, they kind of get baptized by Feely, but early on, they get the idea of campus life without having to prepare for games. Things move a little bit slower with our schedule in the spring, so it allows them to adapt in that way. There's no right or wrong way to do it. And we've had success stories of guys that have enrolled early or guys that haven't, and eventually they all catch up together. But it will be great to have this bunch come in and to be able to learn early on how we do things.
Jim, you can
Manny,
go ahead.
okay. Um, what position groups do you think will immediately benefit from this class? I'm thinking particularly of wide receiver and defensive back, where there's going to be some significant losses. Are there guys who can come in as true freshmen and make immediate contributions?
Yeah, so when we sign a class, our expectation is that everybody's coming in to make a contribution their freshman year. We don't want anyone to think, "Hey, we're bringing you in for the future." We want everyone doing everything they can to prepare themselves to help out our football team, that following fall. Um, and if you look at, even the season that we just finished, the regular season we just finished, and you look at some of the roles that I think, I think our pump block team at Wake Forest on Saturday, I think there might have been six true freshmen out of the 11 guys on the field. If it wasn't six, it was five. Um, and so we want those guys we're going to develop them. We're not going to put them on the field until they're ready, but we want them coming ready to compete. Certainly, as you mentioned, we do lose some decent numbers at the skill spots at wide receiver, at defensive back. Um, the skill guys are at times a little bit easier to acclimate to playing early, as opposed to the defensive line positions or offensive line positions. But saying that, look at what Preston Watson, Tyshawn Reed did this year. So both those guys, had significant roles on our football team in year one. So we always wait till they get here. And like I said, we want everyone to compete and think that your time is now, and then we can always adjust accordingly.
Okay, thanks.
Adam, we'll go to you next.
Coach, I was wondering, I know there's not 105-man roster limit now, but it doesn't seem like there's any class size limit anymore. How did you guys balance the need for potentially adding guys to the transfer portal, and instead of bringing guys in through the recruiting process, and then what is kind of your approach on walk-ons heading into next year, and how are you going to balance that?
Yeah, so kind of answer it in reverse order. The walk-on piece of this is fluid as we're still sorting out really what our scholarship limit is going to be. Um, and just who comes back and what our retention is based off of what our roster is right now, fall 24. Um, we have room, we have capability to improve our football team through the transfer portal, and um, but if we've done our job well, it should not have to be as dramatic as what it was a year ago, and we don't ever want it to be as dramatic as it was a year ago. And we're super thankful for the ones that came in and the roles that they played. We wouldn't be 9-3 without this transfer portal class. Um, but we hope that now that turns a little bit more into instead of a shotgun approach, right? More like sniper approach, right? Like more dialed in on what really can affect winning and just and using our numbers accordingly. So those evaluations have already started of who's out there, and again, we'll do as good of a job as we can making decisions not just on who can help our football team, but who can fit in our locker room and who's going to become us. Um, not just in the Yo building, but elsewhere on campus. Our administration, our university administration, admissions have done a phenomenal job of changing with the times, right? Even just the sheer number of mid-years, we've got to make sure that those guys are prepared for success and have a great first semester at Duke, and we're committed to us as a coaching staff, along with our academic student services and everybody, to make sure that these young men, and whatever time they come in or whether through the transfer portal, they don't just survive here, they thrive here, and so that will be our plan going forward.
Lewis?
Hey, Manny, in the event of kind of asking a somewhat cheesy question here, from your all's perspective, what was the DNA of what these incoming players had that made them the right fit for your program?
That is not a cheesy question at all, right? So I would say what we found the common denominator was the mix of guys who really believed that they could win championships here at Duke. Really believed that to me it's four-pronged. They know they're getting elite academics. And I think people have always believed that. I think those people have always been attracted to Duke. And because of that, they know that life after football, there's no place that can set them up for that better than Duke University can. And to that point, I think that's always been true. I think what this class came together with the belief is that 1 and 2 are true, but 3 and 4 is that we can compete for championships now here at Duke, starting with the ACC championship, which ultimately will get you into the college football playoff. And then by doing 1, 2, and 3, that can also get you from Durham to the National Football League. And we believe that we can deliver on all 4 of those things. And I think those guys in this class were attracted to those 4 things. I think they believe in our vision to make those 4 things true. And what was really neat as a coach, there was 2 things that were really rewarding as a coach this year. You set your vision first to your own locker room, and then second to those that you recruit. And to set our vision on how we're going to win for the guys in our locker room, and to use the defense as an example, and to see all the tackle for losses and sacks and turnovers come about just as we told them they would. They believe you, but on faith, but they really would love to see the evidence in person, and then from the Elon game on, and they really see it, and now you've got full believers. And the same thing with our recruits. Most of them committed in the summertime, and they believed. What was really rewarding for us as coaches is that they got to see, and they saw that we are who we say we are, but we were going to do what we said we were going to do, and they can see the pathway happening right now, and so what they wanted Duke for, I think the evidence of what happened in this fall really backed up their decision.
Lewis, do you have a follow-up to that, or is your hand still up just for fun?
No, it was up for fun. I just
Cool.
lowered
All
it.
right, cool. All good. We got time for 2 more, so I'm going to go to Ranjan and then Adam to finish this up here.
Hey, Coach. You mentioned Dan Mahan, and you flipped Bryce Davis, and from Clemson. How big is it for you guys to get some of the top talent from this state as you're program building and establishing your presence on the recruiting trail for years to come?
Yeah, what was neat was we were able to, when we first got here in January, it's like, all right, how do you could dream it up from scratch, right? And first and foremost, we wanted to win in the state of North Carolina. Our border states were very important to us. And then we were very specific where we thought would be target-rich areas that had either a lot of population or a lot of schools that would have Duke type of individuals. And we didn't want to go chasing around the country to places that we didn't feel that would give us, um, in essence, the reward for our resource that we put into it. And so to sign 4 players, not just players from North Carolina, but of the caliber of players, a quarterback like Dan, a talent like Bryce Davis, and whatever the recruiting services say about him, our opinion of him is even higher, not just as a player, but as a person. Jamie Little, which we thought was a key piece to us with what we were losing at wide receiver. Kayvon Simmons, an outstanding athlete who, again, we think can affect our receiver room that came at camp and was just phenomenal at camp. But 7 players from border states. And then what you also saw, as you saw the footprint, we want to be dominant in target-rich areas. What we did in Pennsylvania this year, what we did in Philadelphia, what we did in Boston. Um, Signing Bradley Gompers from Pittsburgh Central Catholic. I mean, just based off of the film, I don't know what the recruiting rankings say. I mean, he might be the best player in the state of PA this year, and everybody went after him. And to see Duke win those recruiting battles, to see Duke win versus Clemson and Georgia for Bryce, that there's going to be future Bryce Davises in the state. And I told Bryce this when he committed to us. You're not just affecting your life. You're affecting right now. There's some ninth grader in the state of North Carolina that doesn't even know that he's going to be that guy. And when he is, but he knows who Bryce Davis is, and you know what Bryce, who Bryce signed with today. And the same thing up in Pennsylvania. And those guys understand like what's going on at Duke. And I keep saying the same course. There's something special about Duke, and when you get here, you start to see why. And I think it's always hard when you single out certain guys in a class over others because what the internet decides they are. Again, we're excited about all of the guys that we signed, but you do see some high profile decisions that can affect high profile decisions in the future. And there was a bunch of those made because trust me, everybody wanted our guys and everybody came after them. And the fact that our guys, you can always tell when you have a win on signing day by the lack of drama in the 48 hours beforehand. And the fact that we had a very drama free day today was one of the really, sort of the cherry on top.
Thanks.
Coach, I know you mentioned the Iron Dukes earlier. Notably, didn't mention Durham Devils Club. I'm assuming that's kind of going to come in-house next year with NIL. How much of a impact did NIL play in signing this level of class? How much did the facilities improvements that you guys had in the locker room and the players lounge, and then game day atmosphere? I mean, how much did you feel like those kind of added to your ability to attract this high level of talent?
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned all those things, Adam. Yeah, again in reverse order, I absolutely have to thank everyone who came to our games this year, and again the fact that when we say things like 16 out of 19 wins at home, well, remember like in those 19 contests, there's going to be recruits in the stands, and how they've seen the atmosphere change at Wallace Wade over the course of the years, and when you think about the 3 losses, obviously the SMU one, which was insane this year, the Notre Dame one a year ago, I can't remember what the one the first year was, but so you're seeing a highly, highly competitive, a winning team or a team that really had, in the last 2 years, winning performances that were, that came down to a play. So, our student body, again, everyone in the stands, our administration for building the Devil's Deck, all those things matter and all those things show because that goes into, as you mentioned, the additions to the 3rd floor, to the Yo Center, our locker room. It's proof to these recruits that Duke is committed to a first class experience on campus beyond just relying on being elite in the academic world and everything else. So, and then when you mentioned the Durham Devils Club and Iron Dukes, the lines get more and more blurred. I mean, certainly there have been leadership people from on both sides, the members of our starting 11, people who have really that I'm so thankful for when we even just going back to last December when we were really trying to keep our heads above water with where this program was and the fact that not only were we able to poke our head above water, but really take off in flight is really due to all that. It's like anything else. we don't ever want NIL to be the reason why somebody chooses to come to Duke. And I think the four things that I mentioned earlier are the primary decisions, but there are cases where if it helps, it helps. And as we get into rev share and what that means going forward, we're still learning, kind of as all programs are, of exactly how that's going to work and how that affects the guys that we signed. But again, I couldn't be more proud to be the head football coach of these 27, and can't wait to get them on campus.
All right. Thank you guys. Thank you, Coach, for joining us. Appreciate the time.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Coach.